can start.
Good evening, everyone, and very warm welcome to today's web seminar. Myself, Rameshwar, and I would take you through the agenda for today. So today we start our web seminar with the introduction to TEMA publishers, followed by the web seminar, question and answer. After the question and answer session, you will receive a feedback forms and e-certificates forms. TEMA has established in 1886 in Germany. It's founded by George Thema. It's operating since 135 years. TEMA is one of the leading publisher in the field of neurosurgery and plastic surgery. TEMA is among the top publishers in the field of human anatomy, ENT, radiology, orthopedics, speech and language therapy, and ophthalmology. So today's seminar will be followed by question and answer and online quiz with prizes for top 5 winners. And all attendees will receive the e-certificate of a participation after this seminar. And we'll be taking a 5-minute break during this seminar. And now I would like to introduce our two esteemed speakers today, Dr. Sanjeev Kumar Mittal and Dr. Rajkumar Agrawal. Sanjeev Kumar Mittal is the head of the Department of Ophthalmology in AIIMS, Rishikesh. He has completed his graduation and post-graduation from GSV Medical College, Kanpur, and did fellowship from Gunma University, Japan. He has been trained at Arvinda Eye Hospital, Madurai, and LV Prasad Eye Institute, Hyderabad. He has 28 years of experience as an ophthalmologist and is a well-known medical faculty from Uttarakhand since 1996. He has been a professor of ophthalmology for the last 15 years and has authored 55 research publications and has 8 research projects to his credit. He has been bestowed with several awards for community ophthalmology services. Teaching and training students and spreading eye health awareness are his passions. Rajkumar Agrawal is a consultant ophthalmologist at Saharanpur, Uttar Pradesh. He completed his graduation and post-graduation from SN Medical College, Agra. He has 30 years of wide experience in the field of ophthalmology. Clinical work and teaching have been his passions, and he has special interest in the clinical work of glaucoma, squint, and ophthalmology. So I really thanks all of you for patiently listening to me. And now I request Dr. Mittal to please start his presentation.
Thank you very much, TEMA Publication, for providing us this platform to interact with the students all across the nation. And since I just mentioned that ophthalmology is the passion for us, and teaching ophthalmology is something like we have been loving. So today's this class, actually this topic I have taken specifically for the all MBBS students, because this is the foundation topic of ophthalmology. So the topic is clinical approach to eye diseases based on the symptoms. So like all the students, those who are here, I assume that all are MBBS students here, and those who are in final professional part 1, like those who are studying ophthalmology at undergraduate level. So this is the talk. We will go ahead with the basics of the ophthalmology. When you see an encounter with a patient, like how do we approach to a patient? That is our theme of today's class. So in this lecture, in this class, in this seminar today, this is actually divided how we are going to know, like symptoms. As you all know, that symptoms are the problems stated by the patient. What patient says, this is the symptom. And when we talk about signs, this is what a doctor observes in the patient. That is a sign. And when we talk about clinical presentation, what is the clinical presentation? That is a mix of both, means the signs and symptoms both together, mixed together. So why I just narrated it here, because some of you are maybe just started ophthalmology, because this year, because of this ongoing pandemic, the sessions are late. So I think some of you had just joined last month or this month. So the objective of this today's class is basically what various symptoms can occur in a patient who is suffering from the diseases, eye diseases. And how do we approach to make a diagnosis on the basis of presenting symptoms? All of you have already read Hutchinson's clinical methodology. And this is something in the starting of the Hutchinson's clinical methodology, which is written that it's mentioned that whenever the patient enters to you, to the doctor's room, to the doctor's clinic, you start making the diagnosis, seeing the patient, how the patient is moving. And the proper history, if you elaborate it, that can give a clue to make a diagnosis, and one is able to make almost 80%, 70 to 80% diagnosis is made just based on the proper history elaboration. So that's what this symptomatology, once we know what is the symptomatology related to the eye diseases, the basics of that, then you would be knowing what are the symptoms and how we are going to manipulate it, how we are going to use it. So this topic, today's topic, what we are going to understand now, first we will be discussing the different ocular symptoms which a patient may have. Then we will know that the different structures of the eyes, what are their functions and how these symptoms are related to that particular structure of the eye. When we know that this particular structure of the patient is, this structure has these symptoms, so we will correlate by knowing that symptom, oh, this particular part of the eyeball is affected. And lastly, then, based on patient's total symptoms, we will reach to the diagnosis. So that we will go through in this all today's structured class. So just to start with, I just want you all students to please just think about possible ocular symptoms. Some of you already attended, some must have attended some classes in your medical colleges. Or otherwise, you must have heard, like you must have come across with your people in your surrounding, your near dear, your friends who are having this problem in the eyes. So you must be aware of some symptoms, some problems in the eye. Just imagine those, think of those symptoms. Because we cannot be that much interactive here actually in the class, in between the class. So just I will be telling you right now, think over. First and most important symptom, the complaint one patient may have, that is diminution of vision. Diminution of vision, because you know the eyes, the function of the eye is to see. So the most important problem a patient may have, the visual is lost or it is diminished. So it is just to show you a chart. This is Snellen's chart where we test the vision. Like it may appear blurred or it may do not appear in totally. The second symptom one may be concerned is pain. Oh doctor, my eyes are paining since yesterday for the last 2 days. This is some symptom of concern to a patient, to a person. Third, another symptom, the redness, eyes become red. Oh doctor, I do not know what happened, my eyes are red. Then some people may have watering from the eyes or some sticky discharge coming out from the eyes. Some patients may complain and looking at the light. There's a lot of glare. They feel like, oh, I am not able to see this. I can't tolerate this light. So sometimes it is just an excessive light, or sometimes, oh, it's so glare that it's paining my eyes. So the intensity varies. Some other symptoms, some may think of, some may have this symptom, something black, some spots are coming in front of my eyes. Something is floating in the field, in the atmosphere. I can see something is floating. Some black spots, some cobweb-like structures are floating. Some may have some symptoms, some problem. The images are distorted. Doctor, when I see your face, I find your face is distorted, not properly. I see something, it is distorted, not straight.
Sir, excuse me. I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir. When you are moving away from the mic, the audio is getting low, sir.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Some patients may have this symptom. Oh, the objects, they appear smaller to me, or the things appear to be farther away from my side. Some patients may have a complaint, oh, there is a black spot. When I see there is a black spot, or some other people may say, oh, doctor, when I got up in the morning, I don't see on the right side of my face field. I can't see on my right hand side. I can't see. This happens suddenly. So this is a visual field defect. Visual field defects are called scotoma. Other patients sometimes may have some milder symptoms. Doctor, I have been working on computer since long. For the last daily I work on 5 hours, 6 hours. But in the evening I have headache. Eyes are tired. There's a like burning sensation in my eyes, something like. These are called like fatigue of the eye, asthenopic symptoms. Other patients may complain, doctor, I am seeing two. The things appear two, double. If I look at the moon in the night, it appears double, or there is a shadow of moon just adjacent to that. All the things are appearing two for the last few days. Double vision, seeing two. Or sometimes patient may say, doctor, when I look at the moon, it appears there are 3 moons, 4 moons, a multiple vision. Some patients, they complain, my eyes are burning. I have burning sensation. There's itching in my eyes. There is dryness, feeling of dryness. It looks like something is pricking in my eyes. Others may complain, doctor, when I look at the light of headlights of the vehicle coming in the night, I find there's around there are round circles like I see in the rainbow, seeing the colored halos. Some patients may complain of flashes of light, something like in the night time when you look at the sky and there's this rainy thundering of the clouds, so there's lightning. So that sort of flashes of lights are seen. This is called photopsia. The medical terminology is photopsia. Some patients may say, doctor, the things I got surgery of my eyes done, and since then I have been noticing the objects are appearing slightly bluish in color, or slightly reddish in color. So there is a slight change in the color, dyschromatopsia or achromatopsia. Other patients may come to you, doctor, this my eyelid is drooped down. It's drooped down. I do not know what happened to it. It's drooped down. This is called ptosis. Other patient may come with deviation of eyeball, squinting, which is very apparent to some people, squinting of eyeball. Some may notice the eyes are appearing protruded out. Either one eye is protruded out or both the eyes are protruded out. The protrusion of eyeball, proptosis. So there are various symptoms, and we remember, like when we are discussing a symptom and complaints, so the most important, important complaints we discuss first, then gradually that which are occurring least. The frequency is lesser. So most commonly occurring first, least commonly occurring in the last. Now this is a diagram of eyeball. This is a sagittal diagram of section of eyeball. This is, we would be referring here, just I will take 1 minute here. This is the cornea, you know that, sclera. And another layer, middle layer is, this is the choroid. And choroid anteriorly, this is ciliary body. And most anteriorly, this is iris. So iris, ciliary body and choroid, 3 together are called uvea, uveal layer. Outermost layer was sclera and front was cornea. Posteriorly, it is invaded by optic nerve, which is connected to the brain. It is a second cranial nerve. The innermost layer here, which is shown here as a brown in color, this is retina. This compartment where you see my cursor, surrounded with anterior surface of, this is the lens, anterior surface of lens, and posterior surface of iris. This is posterior chamber. This is all vitreous humor filled up, vitreous cavity. So this whole eye, this part, from this part to anteriorly is anterior segment, and behind this is all posterior segment. So when we talk grossly, we talk about anterior segment diseases of the eye, posterior segment diseases of the eye. This is optic nerve. Optic nerve is nothing, just a bundle of retinal nerve fibers. Retina, you know that it is 10 layered. The innermost layers are their nerve fiber layers. All the nerve fibers together, they go to the brain in a bundle, and this is called optic nerve. And this part is macula. This part, posterior pole part of the retina, this is macula. And the most central part in the macula is fovea. Fovea is the most sensitive part of the retina. Another thing, arteries which are supplying to the eyeball, this comes from this side. Veins comes from through this side along with the optic nerve, and they supply to the whole of the eye. So most important thing here to know is that cornea is a transparent structure, lens is a transparent structure, and this center is pupil. Light rays passes through it, get converged at the through the cornea and then through the convex lens, and they meet at the fovea centralis where the image is formed. Anterior lid, this is all remains covered with lid, upper lid, and here the lower lid. And just look here, this is a thin mucous membrane-like structure, transparent. This is called conjunctiva. So now this is the basic thing. We are going ahead. This is just to show like the other structures, the lids. This is the eyeball. This is the eyeball, and this is the upper lid. Section of upper lid. This is again a sagittal section of upper lid. This is the sagittal section of lower lid. This is the skin side of the lid, and this is the conjunctival surface, inner surface of lid. So you see this layer is the conjunctiva, which covers the globe and the back of lid, upper lid, and this is the lower. This is eyelash. So we are going to discuss now with the conjunctiva first, then cornea, and all structures we will be taking up one by one. So remember, when we are talking about the symptoms, there may be few or many symptoms which are arising from a disease. So the commoner ones will be noted first, the least common in the last, depending upon their incidence. And then history of illness, when you take a patient's history, how we are taking the history, we are not going into details of that part in general, but to just how do we apply it here? Like that, when you take the history of illness, in the symptoms, they should be noted in a chronological order. So I am going to tell you like now structure based, but when we note the history, we note in a chronological order, like which thing occurred first, right? So first we take structure based or symptoms. First we took the conjunctiva now here. So this is the conjunctiva which is marked red in color here. This is the conjunctiva. So if a patient has a conjunctival disease, what disease? Inflammation, inflammation of conjunctiva is called conjunctivitis. So what symptoms a patient will have in conjunctivitis? There would be redness of the eye, there would be itching of the eyes, patient may complain of burning or dryness feeling, patient may complain of discomfort, mild pain, patient may complain of watering from the eyes or discharge, foreign body sensation, or some patient may have some growth over the conjunctiva or a nevus. Other patient may complain of mild photophobia, mild glare. But remember, in spite of all these symptoms, any of the symptoms or more of the symptoms, but if conjunctival disease is there, vision will not be affected. Visual acuity will never be affected. Vision will not be affected if conjunctiva is involved. So if a patient has the disease, tells several symptoms, vision is not affected, conjunctiva should be kept in mind. This is just to show you like, this is a normally like, this is the white part is sclera. It is covered, if you see it looks like a slightly shiny over here, this shiny structure is conjunctival membrane. It is shiny. This is corneal. Right? So this conjunctiva will appear red. Here you see it is red. Now this is over the eyeball, it is red. When you retracted the lower lid, you retracted it down, you notice in surface, under surface of lid is also red. So this is palpable conjunctiva also red. And when this bulbar or palpebral, they meet together, this is called fornix. This is also red. Now look here. This patient has just a small homogeneous red patch of redness. See, this type of redness is different from this redness, or both are red. This is a conjunctivitis. This is a hemorrhage, subconjunctival hemorrhage. See here, look here. This patient's conjunctiva, look here and here. This one is slightly pinkish, slightly congested. Simultaneously, can you appreciate it is slightly swollen? So there is an edema of conjunctiva. So patient may complain with simply the redness, itching, burning sensation. Now coming to the next structure, cornea. Cornea, it is transparent structure. The function is to converge the light rays so that it meet at the fovea centralis. So it has to be transparent. Now it is richly supplied by nerves which are non-modulated. Now if cornea is involved, this is called keratitis. Inflammation is keratitis. Latin is keratone, and keratitis, itis, when we put itis as a suffix, it's inflammation. So various keratitis, corneal ulcer is the common one. So if this is involved, what will patient will have? Patient will have severe pain. Severe pain. See, conjunctivitis, conjunctiva pain would be less, discomfort. But here the pain is very severe. Watering and discharge would be there. Photophobia would be severe. Conjunctiva may also have, but here the photophobia is severe. To that patient is not able to open the eye. Redness will be there. But this redness would be like, see here, it is slightly just around the cornea. Around the cornea, this part is called limbus. When the cornea meets sclera is called limbus. So this redness would be just around the limbus. So means palpable conjunctiva under surface of lid will not be affected. This redness will be localized. Diminution of vision. Yes, very important. Because cornea, through the cornea light rays passes. So suppose this part of the cornea, central part of the cornea, 3 to 4 millimeter in diameter, this part, which is corresponding to pupil. See my cursor, this part is involved, this will certainly lead to diminution of vision. If some lesion is here at the peripheral part of cornea, it may have other symptoms, but diminution of vision may not occur. Okay, some patient may have a complaint of noting white opacification. Doctor, I have some whiteness in my eyes. This figure can present. These are the various presentation in corneal disorders. See, this is normally how does it look like, and you see this is a patient may say, doctor, there's a white, something white in my eyes, something white in my eyes, something white in my eyes like this. But here patient will say there's a pain, lot of pain, discharge, loss of vision. Loss of vision will be here also. Here some part of pupillary area of cornea is clear, loss of vision may be there, but not as much as it is there in this kind of case. So that varies. Now next structure is anterior chamber and posterior chamber. You see these two compartments, this is in continuation, they contain aqueous humor. Aqueous humor is a filtrate of blood from the ciliary body. Through the ciliary body, the blood vessels, it filters, and this aqueous humor is a filtrate sort of plasma. So this is transparent and provides metabolism, nutrition to lens, which is devoid of blood vessels, and cornea, which is again devoid of blood vessels. So if a patient is affected, anterior and posterior chamber, when it will be affected, there it is affected in two ways mostly. One is the intraocular pressure is raised, which is called glaucoma. So when intraocular pressure is raised, it has varied presentation because the raised pressure is called, the disease name is glaucoma. It may have either no symptom in early stage, or it may have pain, or it may present as diminution of vision, or a patient may have redness or photophobia. Depending upon if it is a disease is of acute onset or chronic onset, patient will have any or more of these symptoms. Either no symptom or this all symptoms, Some of them less, some of them are more. Another thing, if this transparent aqueous gets turbid, and it will get turbid if this structure iris or ciliary body gets inflamed. So those inflammatory exudates, they will pour in into anterior chamber, posterior chamber, and it will become turbid. So if it becomes turbid, what will happen? Light rays which are piercing through the cornea, some of the light rays will be obstructed because it is no more transparent. The patient will present as diminution of vision. So this will lead to diminution of vision. Now coming to the another structure, next structure, iris and ciliary body. As initially I mentioned, iris, ciliary body, and choroid all in continuation. But iris and the diseases of the iris, inflammatory disease, this is called iritis, is inevitably associated with ciliary body inflammation, cyclitis, iridocyclitis. If this is involved, what patient will have? What symptom patient will have? Patient will have pain. Patient will have diminution of vision. Why? Because the aqueous become turbid. They exude inflammation. You know, inflammation leads to swelling, leads to exudation of cells. It will become turbid, diminution of vision. And this inflammation leads to redness. So here what happens? Deep vessels which are coming outside here on the surface, they also gets dilated. So that patient presents with redness just around the globe, around the limbus, outside over the globe. This redness would be visible around the limbus. And the patient will have, because these structures are highly sensitive, innervated with nerves, patient will have photophobia. And then patient may have some watering. This watering is different watering. This is because of photophobia, reflex watering. Okay, different type of watering. In conjunctival disease, watering would be discharged. Here, this is just a reflex watering because of photophobia. So it is, we have written in the last, means it is least common. Then the next structure is lens. Lens is very important structure. This, through it the light rays passes and meets at the fovea, convex structure. And the beauty of the lens is that it is capable of changing its shape. The shape changes. If you have to look at near object, it becomes more convex. Otherwise, it is less convex. So if, see, this is avascular structure, and you see lens, no inflammation occurs in lens. Lens, only the opacification is the disease which occurs in the lens. Or at time, due to injury to the eyeball, the lens may be shifted. Or in some congenital disease, it may be shifted from its position. Then we call it subluxation of lens. So, but most commonly, it is opacification. So, how this lens disease will present to us? That will lead to diminution of vision. Diminution of vision or blurring of vision. Or patient may complain of like this. Doctor, for the last few months, I have been noticing there is a whiteness in my eye. There is vision is reduced now, and eyes appear slightly. There is a white part-like structure in my eye. Whiteness. So some patient may complain of white opacity. When it starts developing, this is called cataract. When it starts developing, patient gets difficulty in reflection. I mean, with the vision. So he or she gets on getting the glasses checked up by the optician shop or the doctor, ophthalmologist. So there is a frequent change of glasses. Patient will say, doctor, I got my spectacle checked up in 4 months back. Again, I noticed 2 months after, again, there is a change in power. It's changing. It means that this lens is getting cataractus, which is gradually increasing. Some patients, they complain of glare. Doctor, I have been noticing for the last 6 months when I drive in the night, the vehicle's light and the oncoming vehicle's light, headlights, that causes a lot of glare to me. It was not there earlier. So this is because of the lens opacification. This can be another symptom. Some patient may say, doctor, he's 60 years or 70 years old. Doctor, I've been noticing when I look at the distant objects or some objects in the distance, they appear double. Or sometimes I see different shadows. Things has 2-3 shadows, like the multiple vision. Polyopia or diplopia. Very rarely some may complain of, doctor, I notice glare when I drive in the night, and simultaneously I notice there are colored rings around the headlights of the vehicles, as if it is a rainbow-like colors. So important thing, there will not be any pain, no redness. No pain, no redness. So lens never leads to pain, no redness. Only this related to vision, these symptoms will happen. Then the vitreous here. Vitreous, what will happen? This is the clear jelly-like structure which provides integrity to the eyeball, a shape. So sometimes patient has some degenerative changes. The patient will have something flying, floating in the visual field. Some black spots are seen. They are moving. They are swinging in my field of vision. Or sometimes if they come in the visual axis here, then they may cause obstruction in vision. Then the patient may have gradual diminution of vision because of those degenerative changes along the visual axis. Sometimes you see this is the retina adjacent. So there are abnormal vessels in the retina, they bleed. If these abnormal vessels they bleed, it will lead to hemorrhage in the vitreous. Then a patient will have sudden diminution of vision. Doctor, I got up in the morning, just after half an hour, suddenly I lost my vision in my eye. So sudden vision lost. But remember, no pain, no redness in the eye. So there will not be pain, no redness. Then the retina here, innermost layer inside. The disease of the retina, they can appear if the disease is occurring here, somewhere here. So this may not actually occur, may cause any problem to the patient initially. But if the disease is at the macula or the fovea, central part at the posterior pole, it will have a sudden impact on vision. So patient in the retinal disease will have either a sudden diminution of vision or a gradual diminution of vision. If this part is involved, fovea centralis, macula is involved, patient will have distorted vision. This is called metamorphopsia. Or sometimes what happens, the retina breaks through, it breaks. When it detaches, initially there would be just flashes of light. So there would be photopsia. Photopsia means flashes of light. Some patients' retina breaks, suppose from this side, upper part is broken. The upper part is detached. What will happen? The inferior field of vision will be lost. Patient will have inferior field of vision. Patient will say, doctor, for the last 1 hour, I noticed suddenly I can't see in the lower part of my right eye. It has gone. It's totally black, like a curtain. Very rarely, some patient may have some glare. Color blindness is something like hereditary, but very few, some patient, because color blindness is mostly related to the retina, cones and rods. So the cones are responsible for that. So if there is a disease affecting the cones, that will lead to color blindness. See, glare, we just put it there. Very few people can have glare because there is a retinal pigment epithelium cells. If those are scanty, scarce, then the patient may have abnormal diffraction in the eyeball and may lead to some glare. Like you must have seen albinos, like those who are suffering from albinism, they have some glare, difficulty of it. So remember, in retinal disease, no pain, no redness. No pain, no redness. Then choroid. This choroid is a little layer, and anterior it is continuous ciliary body and iris. So again, the choroid, suppose that this is inflammation is called choroiditis. If this is involved, patient may remain symptomless. If choroid is involved here at the posterior pole, there would be a swelling. So what will happen? This is choroiditis. It can involve even the retina here. So such patient may have diminution of vision, gradual diminution of vision. And this choroiditis at several places, patches may occur. Then it exudes, because choroid inflammation involves retina as well. And this choroiditis inflammation leads to pouring of inflammatory cells in the vitreous. Then a patient may complain of floaters. So these or any of these patient symptoms may be present in a patient if patient is having disease of choroid. Again, remember, no pain, no redness will occur. Then the outermost coat posteriorly the sclera, thick, it provides strength to the eyeball, protect the eyeball's content, white in color. If there is some inflammation of the sclera, then it may lead to pain. But remember, pain occurs only when this is actually at the posterior part or anterior part. It may lead to slight pain. See, this much part of the sclera, from this where I am showing my cursor here and here, this much is anteriorly visible. Rest is all remains covered with the extraocular muscles and other fascias. So this is in the orbit, not seen. So we see from this area on the sclera front. When we see the eyeball, this much area we see. So suppose there is inflammation, then the redness will be there, but that would be localized. And the patient may have photophobia. Again, this photophobia would be much less in comparison to photophobia occurring in if disease is in the cornea. Watering is, I just mentioned, may occur or may not occur just because of photophobia. Again, remember, diminution vision will not occur in scleritis until, except that if the posterior pole of part of the sclera is involved here, if this is involved, then it may affect the retina here. Then patient may have diminution. Otherwise, sclera will not lead to diminution. Now the optic nerve. Optic nerve is I just mentioned all the nerve fibers from the retina, they go to the brain, the optic nerve. If optic nerve, what type of optic nerve disease may occur? Inflammation, optic neuritis, or its dystrophy, optic atrophy. The optic atrophy or degeneration and inflammation. So patient will have diminution of vision, which would be sudden. Now, sudden means like patient may say, doctor, I am not able to see since yesterday. Vision is declining since yesterday. It may have pain, it may be painless, both. That we would be seeing in subsequent slides when it is painful, when painless. Remember, no redness, no watering, no glare if optic nerve is involved. Then coming to the front part, this is the lid. Now lid, patient may complain, doctor, there is a swelling, may occur, or there is a drooping of lid. Doctor, there is a growth, swelling, this growth, same thing like here. Or patient may say, my eyes open little less. This eye, this palpable fissure. This is called palpable fissure. So this is, the width is less, here it is more. So patient may say this is less, this is more, this is less. Some patient may say lips, they itch. Then the eyelashes, how they can present the symptoms. This is the upper lid, lower lid, this is the eyelashes. You see, eyelashes normally doesn't cause any problem, but if they are interned or there is an extra row of eyelashes which is rubbing over the cornea or conjunctiva, then a patient may complain of foreign body sensation, glare, watering, redness. The patient says foreign body sensation, glare, watering, redness. So we should immediately think, okay, there is some disease related to the conjunctiva or to the cornea, because there is a foreign body sensation. Cornea, conjunctiva, we will focus on lids margins. This is our area where we will focus on examination of eye. Eyeball. Some patient may say, doctor, this is my eyes are squinted. Deviation of eyeball. Some may say it looks like protruded. Others may say it looks like there is a sunken eye. Now this is structure, lacrimal system is present at the medial end of the medial canthus. This is called medial canthus, this is lateral canthus. See again, lateral canthus where upper lid and lower lid meet, laterally lateral canthus, and this is medial canthus. So this area is the area of lacrimal sac. So lacrimal system, if it's inflamed acutely, it may inflame acutely or it may be chronic one. So how it will present? It will present as watering or discharge, and there will be pain. If it is acute condition, there would be pain. If it is a chronic inflammation, pain will not be there. And most common one is inflammation of lacrimal sac, dacrocystitis. And some patients may complain of there's a swelling just medial to the eyeball, medial to eye and between the eye and the nose. So near medial. Patient will not say medial canthus. It is our version. Patient will say, doctor, this please look. Patient will say that, doctor, look at my eyes. So near my eyes, medial side towards nose, there is a swelling. Remember, simultaneously more than one structure may also be involved. For example, suppose a cornea is involved, keratitis, the conjunctivitis is mostly involved because their superficial layer of epithelium is in continuation. Similarly, if iris is involved, iritis, ciliary body is also involved, iridocyclitis. Another thing, like disease from one structure, it can spread or it can sequel or it can complicate to the adjacent structure of eye, another structure of eye. So that we have to keep in mind. Then the symptoms will be more. So that will all depend upon that. Thus, severity of the disease will govern the intensity and the number of symptoms. The severity of the disease, more severe the disease, the intensity of the symptoms would be more, and you may have more symptoms as we discussed. If disease is less severe, mild disease, just one symptom may be present. Out of that, so many we described in every structure, one may be present, and intensity would be minimal. So that all varies. Now, just for you, how you did you recap that? I just want you people just type and message me. Where do you get diminution of vision with pain and redness? You will have diminution. Where will you have diminution of vision with pain and redness? So the answer is if the disease is from the cornea, iris, ciliary body, or there's acute rise of intraocular pressure. Another question just for you. Where do you get pain and redness, but no diminution of vision? No diminution of vision. Pain and redness. So this would be either the disease of conjunctiva or scalp. So this is how we just discussed the structures which are leading to certain all symptoms. Now we are taking symptomatic based approach to diagnosis. Next phase of this class, and after that we will discuss some symptoms. Then we will have a little 5 minutes break. So the diminution of vision, we discussed the most important one, and what type of in the history you will ask. So we should know what history we are going to ask. Diminution of vision may be sudden, painless. It can be sudden, painful. It can be gradual, painless. It can be gradual, painful. It may be a transient loss of vision. This is called amaurosis. It can be a diminution of vision during night time, nyctalopia. It can be a diminution of vision during daytime, hemeralopia. Or a patient may complain a diminution of vision for only near object. When I work on mobile, there is a difficulty. Otherwise, I'm all right. So if a patient, this is a flow chart for algorithm, how we differentiate. Like if a patient comes to a diminution of vision, and this is a transient one, like a patient has an episode of diminution of vision, but it returned to normal within 24 hours. By definition, we say 24 hours, but normally some diseases it occurs, but it returns back to normal within 1 hour. So this is a transient loss. But if it persists for 1 day, then we have to think of whether this has been sudden or gradual. Now, if it is sudden, then we have to ask the patient, has this been painless or painful? Again, if it is gradual one, has this been painless or associated with pain or not? Painless or painful? That we have to ask. So let's discuss now if the patient has sudden painless diminution of vision. Sudden painless diminution of vision. Now, when it will occur? Remember, this will occur the retina, mostly retina. Okay. So to the posterior segment will go. The blood vessels supplying to the retina, central retinal artery, or where it is getting drained, central retinal vein. If there is an occlusion when will occur? Due to emboli in the blood circulation. So their patient will have sudden painless diminution of vision. Mostly it will be unilateral. Or I told you when we were discussing vitreous hemorrhage, blood in the vitreous all of a sudden. Where from it comes? It comes from the abnormal bleeding, abnormal vessels in the retina which bleed spontaneously. Or if the retina is detached totally. If a part of the retina is detached, it will lead to scotoma, a field defect, visual field defect. But if it is total detachment, it will lead to sudden painless diminution of vision. Then, macula, we just discussed, macula is the most important part in the posterior pole of the retina. With the advancing age, it gets degeneration, age-related macular degeneration. And it is of grossly two types, exudative, this is called wet, another is dry. So wet means like there is a sudden exudation into that degeneration due to the vessels were invaded, and that leads to sudden diminution of vision. They are all painless. Then similarly in the macular part, if there is an edema, this is called one entity central serous retinopathy. That edema, fluid collected suddenly, so that will also lead to painless diminution of vision. Then optic neuritis, inflammation of optic nerve. Here, just remember I discussed before, optic neuritis will lead to sudden and sometimes it may be painful also. It's painless, but it may be painful also. That we will come further. Here it will be painful. Then if a patient, you must have already read in the newspaper news, people have taken illicit liquor and they got blind. They died also, they got blind also. So if methyl alcohol poisoning occurs, so that leads to toxicity at the optic nerve. That will involve both the eyes. Similarly, the occipital occipital cortex has infarction. So then the patient will have bilateral sudden painless diminution of vision. Now coming to painful diminution of vision. When painful diminution of vision will occur? Now painful diminution vision will occur, it would be more into actually anterior segment, some partly would be in the posterior. So acute glaucoma, acute attack of glaucoma. In acute congestive glaucoma, acute attack of glaucoma, there is pressure of the eyeball is increased suddenly and the cornea gets edematous, which is otherwise transparent. And that cornea gets edematous, which is richly supplied by nerve. So there is a pain, some severe pain, and it becomes edematous, there would be decline in the vision. Then acute iridocyclitis, inflammation of iris and ciliary body. And you know what will happen? It will lead to sudden, and it would be painful, very painful. Then corneal ulcer, acute keratitis, corneal ulcer, because it will involve the part of the cornea. It will involve the cornea and the light rays will not enter inside, and it is very sensitive structure, richly innervated with the nerves. Then endophthalmitis. It is inflammation inside the eyeball in the posterior segment. The vitreous is all involved, all inflammation. So that will also painful. Then this is the optic neuritis when optic nerve just posterior to the globe, just posterior to the eyeball, it involves, because that area remains surrounded by extraocular muscle sheath. So that area, the patient will have pain. When the patient moves the eyeball, it is painful. If you just press it here, also it's painful. The patient just touch the eyeball, it's painful. Then if there's an injury to the eyeball, injury like if it is whether at a mechanical injury or a chemical is poured into the eye. So that will all affect the cornea immediately. That would be severe pain and sudden painful diminution of vision. So these were the causes for painful diminution of vision, which were sudden. Now the gradual painless. Gradually, patient will say, doctor, for the last 2 years, I notice my vision is declining gradually. I was able to look at distance, but now vision has slightly declined. Gradually, it is declining. But no pain. No pain. So this is the cataract is the most important cause, senile cataract. In the old age when cataract occurs, this is the most important cause. Then refractive errors. Refractive errors, normally they settle by the age of 20 years, particularly developmental myopias. But when you will be reading different details about the refractive errors of hypermetropia, astigmatism, then you will notice they were present, but they were manifested clinically later to some patients, later age. So that occurs. Secondly, after 50, 60 years of age, because of the changes in the normal lens structure, some refractive error starts developing because refractive index of the lens changes. Similarly, after 40, 45 years of age, this natural lens gets hardened, and its capability of changing its focal length declines. So one gets difficulty for near. The patient may say diminution of vision for near. So this is also painless. Then a chronic simple glaucoma is painless. Corneal degenerations. Degenerations are painless. Dystrophies normally are painless. Age-related macular degeneration. Now this is dry type of degeneration is painless. The wet one, exudative one is that will lead to sudden painless. This is gradual one. Then hereditary macular degeneration. Macula is retinal part. Then in diabetic patients, if diabetes involves the retina and it complicates into retina, and the macular part, if it develops edema, it will lead to gradual diminution of vision. But same diabetic retinopathy develops new vessel formation in the retina, which are very fragile, and when they bleed, they will lead to sudden painless diminution. So diabetic retinopathy can present as sudden painless diminution of vision and as gradual painless diminution. Then retinitis pigmentosa is a disease also which leads to night blindness, and this also leads to gradual painless diminution of vision. Optic atrophies, gradual onset, painless diminution of vision. Then certain drugs, they cause maculopathy. They lead to gradual damage to the optic nerve. Like you must have heard chloroquine, patients who are on chloroquine, a patient who are on isoniazid anti-tubercular drug. They have routine checkup to be required for eyes. And then there is a degenerative condition of the conjunctiva, so that gradually encroach over the conjunctiva, then it encroaches over the cornea. So that also leads to decline, gradual one. But we have kept it in the last. So like the things which are occurring most commonly, we have kept first, which are not that significant, later, least occurring in the last. Then gradual painful diminution of vision. When it would be painful, go back, just remember these structures which we discussed. Iridocyclitis, if it is acute, it is painful, but that is comparatively sudden. But here, chronic iridocyclitis would be gradual one. Chronic ulceration would be gradual one. Okay, so when we say gradual sudden, it is something sudden doesn't mean that the things are occurring, diminution of vision occurring within minutes. Not always. Like in central retinal artery occlusion, diminution of vision would be within minutes. While in optic neuritis, this will occur within hours, gradually increasing within hours. So this sudden, there is an overlap. There is an overlap. If you read from different books, you may find slight differences because of the overlap. Corneal dystrophy, we just said that time it was painless. but sometimes it complicates with some edema in the cornea, then it becomes painful. Then aphakia and pseudophakia is basically after cataract surgery. Sometimes some complications occur in the cornea, which is called bullous keratopathy, which leads to edema of the cornea, swelling. So that leads to diminution of vision, painful. Similarly, chronic simple glaucoma. Now here, chronic simple glaucoma is a disease. At times it may be symptoms without any symptom, no symptoms. And sometimes it is a diminution of vision, which is painless. At times it may be slight pain, not severe pain, heaviness in the eyes. Doctor, my eyes, both the eyes, there is some deep, dull ache, boring ache. You will ask, is it really paining you so much? No, no, doctor, slightly. Sometimes it becomes all right, but all that time. So chronic simple glaucoma. So there is a lot of overlap. Then transient diminution of vision. Transient diminution of vision, like it occurred, then it became all right. So like it is just, how do it occurs? Like just see the vessels, this is due to the blood vessels. Like suppose the carotid artery, there is atherosclerosis, and embolus comes and blocks the carotid artery, then goes to central retinal artery, leads to vascular insufficiency. And this vessel in the central retinal artery, there is a temporarily, there is a retinal ischemia. Then this flushes further, flushes out, it goes further. So that leads to transient loss of vision. Similarly, there's like different arteries which are which are connected here, and giant cell arteritis, impending central retinous venous occlusion, some cardiovascular abnormalities like valvular defects, arrhythmias, they all may lead to vascular insufficiencies. And some patients who migraine, there is a vascular spasm. So these all may lead to vascular insufficiency. So in nutshell, carotid artery disease, like this occurs, there is a transient obscuration of vision, persisted for 1 or 2 minutes, then become all right. Amaurosis fugax, giant cell arteritis, migraine, Raynaud's disease, impending central retinal venous occlusion. Central retinal venous occlusion will lead to a sudden diminution of vision. But if it is impending, so this is the starting phase. A patient with acute nephritis, they may also lead into, then develop into uremia. They may also lead to amaurosis, transient diminution of vision. Patients with papilledema. Papilledema means optic nerve heads edema, optic nerve disc edema. This occurs when there is a raised intracranial pressure. Suppose there is an intracranial space occupying lesion or meningitis, encephalitis. So all this may lead to actually disc edema. So that may lead to transient diminution of vision. Then episodes of blurring, severe hypertension, and there is a tumor around the optic nerve. Optic nerve remains covered with meninges of the brain. So the optic nerve sheath meningioma. And sometimes it's a hysterical patients or malingering also. Malingerers, they also just pose. If there is a diminution of vision, it's okay now. So that one has to look for that. Then night blindness. Night blindness, like a patient complains, doctor, during the evening time, I feel difficulty. Or doctor, my child is 4 years old, and during evening time, night time, I notice when he walks in the house, he collides with the furniture. He collides with the furniture. This occurs in the night time only. Daytime is okay. So this is all what is happening. Xerophthalmia, vitamin A deficiency. And second is retinitis pigmentosa, a disease like where the retinal pigments, rods and cones, they are affected. So retinitis pigmentosa. Then these are the two commoner ones, but besides that, patients who are myopic, refractive errors, high myopia with pathological type of myopia. Pathological means a myopia plus abnormal changes in the fundus. Fundus means retina and choroid, all this. This is all fundus, ocular fundus. So these changes are there. So because of those changes, the patient may have night blindness. But this night blindness is not as severe as night blindness here in those two. Then cataract. Cataract has various types. In senile age, senile cataract has various types, presentations. So if it is actually in this part, at the peripheral part, not in the central part, peripheral part, what happens during the night time? The pupils dilate. Pupils dilate during the night time. And what happens because the peripheral part of the lens here and here, this is all having opacification. So light entering is less. The patient has a diminution vision during night time. This aggravates during night time. Similarly, liver disease is all because of vitamin A, is all a fat soluble vitamin. And there's a very rare congenital stationary night blindness, congenital one, very rare. So just two things to be remembered, particularly these two very important to remember. Then day blindness called hemerotopia. When will it occur? Day blindness will occur during daytime. So what is happening during daytime? People are constricting during daytime. So what happens, suppose there is an opacity in the cornea or in the lens or in the vitreous, which is present along the visual axis. Which is present along the visual axis. This is the visual axis. So, and the pupil constrict during daytime, which is present along the, which is minute in size and along the visual axis, the center. So most common would be cataract. If cataract is a nuclear type. Here we discuss peripheral cortex, cortical cataract. This is a nuclear type of cataract. Okay, and or it sometimes this is a posterior subcapsular cataract. Here, such patient will have. They will say, doctor, when I am sitting inside the room, it's okay. When I go outside under sun, then I get some decline in the vision. There is some glare also. If the vision declines. So if the cataract is here, then there will be glare also. Okay. So now with central opacity, then patient will have again diminution vision in the daytime, a central vitreous opacity, or the cones are responsible for day vision. So very, very rare congenital cone deficits. This is a photograph, clinical photograph to show you this posterior subcapsular cataract. Now diminution of vision for near only, like a patient will have, if patient is 45 years and say, doctor, for the last 1 or 2 years getting difficulty in reading or looking my mobile screen. Most important thing is presbyopia, which is a physiological phenomenon for everyone. Second thing is you have to ask the patient, like a patient is maybe perhaps put some eye drop wrongly of some of the relative in the house. So the eye drops, cycloplegics are like the drops which causes paralysis of ciliary muscles. So that those are required for some disease like the eye. So accidentally someone has put that drop, cycloplegia. Or what happens if a patient has developed paralysis of the nerve, of the muscles of iris and ciliary body, which are supplying, which are supplied by third nerve. Nerves are supplied, the muscles of iris and ciliary body are supplied by third nerve. So if there is a paralysis, this is called ophthalmoplegia. So if that occurred, pupil will dilate also. That will lead to diminution of vision for near. And then there is an insufficiency of accommodation. Accommodation means the capability of lens. We are looking at a distance and near. So this is called accommodation. Lens has this capability. So this may also occur sometimes because this is acting through the ciliary muscles. So after prolonged illness, febrile illness, a patient for some days may have this problem, which becomes all right. So you should take history. Have you been suffering from fever or prolonged illness? So that may give a clue to this. So I think after this slide, we will give a 5 minutes break just to tell you about amblyopia, because this is in this context. Amblyopia is not a symptom. Just to mention what is amblyopia, you know what happens sometimes, the vision is poor in one eye or two eyes, and on a history we could not get anything. On examination, we did not find any pathology inside the fundus of the retina. But what was the cause? The retina was not stimulated well, but not functionally it was not developed. The macula was not functionally developed. The fovea was not developed. So that is called actually amblyopia. So partial loss of sight in one or both the eyes in the absence of any ophthalmoscopic means fundus examination, means the posterior segment examination, or apparent sign in the eye. And this occurs due to sensory deprivation of image formation process at retina. So this is amblyopia. This is just an entity to know. So I'll just keep a break of 5 minutes, and Mr. Amit, and please, then I will join with the next symptoms. I'll
Yes,
just-
sir. Thank
I'll
you,
just,
sir.
I'll just click
Yeah.
up my slide here.
So participants will be taking a break for 5 minutes. We'll meet at 5:20. It's 5:13 in my clock. So we'll meet at 5:20. Is it fine, sir?
At what time? 5:20. Yeah,
5:20,
okay.
sir.
5:20. Okay, right.
5:20. So you can take a break and we'll join back. And after the seminar, we'll be having a quiz contest also, where giving prizes to top 3 winners. And e-certificate links will also be shared after the seminar only. So please stay tuned and join back at 5:20. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Now I resume back. So we just discussed the diminution of vision, various types of in the history, like what type of diminution vision we have to ask. Now coming to the next symptom, the very important symptom is pain in the eyes. So now what structure like pain we discussed for patient if is suffering from any disease of the lids, like acute inflammatory disease of the lids, acute inflammatory conditions of lids, like STI, internal hordeolum. Then corneal inflammatory disease, keratitis, corneal ulcer, herpes zoster like. Then corneal dystrophy are painless, but if it is leading to corneal edema, we are going structure wise. Then the cataract surgery related corneal complication, bullous keratopathy. Then iridocyclitis. Then glaucoma. Then endophthalmitis, inflammation inside the posterior segment of eyeball. Panophthalmitis, all the layers of the corneal eyeball are involved in inflammation. Injury, whether it's a penetrating or blunt or chemical injury. So they will all lead to pain. Pain, then retrobulbar neuritis, inflammation of the orbit. Then orbital tumors, if they are compressing over the globe. Posterior scleritis, acute dacrocystitis, like this. And yes, then severe conjunctivitis, just a discomfort. Headache in the sinuses, frontal sinus. Patient may complain that there's a headache there's a frontal area, but there's a headache. There's a pain in the eyes or in the head. So then it is a sinus headache, which may mimic as a pain in the eyes or a cluster type of headaches. So they are the causes of pain. Then what will lead to redness in the eyes? Conjunctival diseases, corneal, uveal, and some others. Let's see through them one by one. Like which one? Conjunctivitis is most common. Or hemorrhage, subconjunctival hemorrhage. Of if there is a foreign body in the conjunctiva, or there is a toxic or chemical reaction, some chemical is instilled in the cornea, in our eyes, or some conjunctival tumor. Then cornea, if there's an infection in the cornea, that will lead to redness. This redness is in the conjunctiva, seen here. Then foreign bodies in cornea, that will lead to localized redness here in the perilimbal type area. Or corneal abrasion, it will lead to a redness here. Like see, this redness is different from this redness. This is due to conjunctiva, this is due to cornea. Now the iridocyclitis, anterior uveitis, uveal causes, this will lead to this condition. And besides that, acute angle closure glaucoma, acute glaucoma will lead to this type of congestion. And localized congested redness would be seen in scleritis, episcleritis, or due to some drugs, topical drug instillation, which has caused some reaction, pharmacology. Then what are the causes for itching, burning, and foreign body sensation? So now we know that these things are confined to surface, ocular surface. Chronic simple conjunctivitis, dry eye, trichiasis means enrolling of eyelashes which are rubbing. Or entropion, lid margin is enrolled and the lashes are rubbing over the conjunctiva or cornea. Then eyes are tired due to excessive work, ocular asthenopia. Patient may complain of watering and discharge. Then again, when will this happen? See, there are two entities, lacrimation and epiphora. Lacrimation is a reflex increase in production of tears due to irritation of ocular surface. And this occurs in the presence of a foreign particle or inflammation in the eye, chemical injuries or psychogenic factors. While epiphora is a passive tearing, overflow of tears. When then there is an obstruction to the outflow of tears, like dacrocystitis, congenital nasolacrimal duct obstruction, ectropion. Here, vision will not be affected. Remember in this, vision will not be affected. If a patient has watering, if this is the condition, vision will not affect it. Then the discharge maybe have either a mucoid, watery like a water, or it can be a pus. It can be a pus. Just a minute, a laser pointer. Or it can be a mixture of both, or it can be just like a thread-like structure. Sometimes patient has some itching and they pull something, try to remove some as if something is foreign body is there, then they feel some thread-like, rubber band-like structure, rubber-like structure is coming. A thread-like structure which is rubbery, elastic. So this is a ropey discharge, a pathognomic of vernal catarrh, allergic conjunctivitis, vernal catarrh. So when the patient comes with this, ask the patient whether when you get up in the morning, do your eyelashes, does they get matted together? So if yes, then it means it is a sort of mucopurulent discharge, or this is a discharge due to some conjunctivitis. Then photophobia. What are the causes? Photophobia is actually a discomfort caused by an abnormal sensitivity to ambient light conditions. And this occurs when there's a pain, actually this is induced by pupillary constriction and ciliary spasm, when these are inflamed, iridocyclitis. Okay, and what happens in keratitis, in corneal ulcer, the nerve fibers, they get irritated. So these all lead to photophobia. So in all inflammatory conditions of eye like keratoconjunctivitis, cornea and conjunctiva involved, anterior uveitis, scleritis, mydriasis, pupils are dilated, whether due to drug or some poisoning, acute angle closure glaucoma, that leads to corneal edema, it leads to photophobia. Some non-ocular causes may also lead to photophobia, like migraine, meningitis, trigeminal neuralgia, subarachnoid hemorrhage. So that is to be kept in mind. Then there's another entity, glare. So glare is different from photophobia because this is excessive awareness of light. And this awareness, when this happens, this is due to abnormal diffraction of rays going inside. So it occurs in posterior subcapsular cataract. If patient has congenital absence of iris, pupil is white, ocular albinism, cone dystrophy. So that is actually excessive light is either entering in the eyeball and abnormal diffraction that leads to glare. Then asthenopia, we just discussed before that asthenopia. So this is a tiredness of the eyes, mild ache in the eyes, headache, and after prolonged working with the eyes, what the condition, where do you get it? If a patient has convergence insufficiency, means because we are using both the eyes are working together in unison. So if this modality of binocularity is defective, so this leads to convergence insufficiency. Or heterophoria. Heterophoria is a latent squint. This faculty, when this is poor, at times what happens? One of the eyes starts deviating. So in an endeavor to subconscious endeavor to use both the eyes together to maintain binocularity, it happens. Asthenopia occurs. Or patient is having a refractive error which is not corrected, or it is undercorrected, not properly corrected. Either uncorrected or not properly corrected, that will lead to asthenopia. Glasses are not formed properly. Okay. And in middle age, due to presbyopia, patient start developing asthenopias. So that black spots or floaters, when they are seen, this is seen like this. These are seen with the patient like this. Why this happened? These are actually black dots, rings, strands like structure, spider-like cobweb structure, which are noticeable against a bright background and move even when the eye is stationary. It looks like something is floating. So when how do they form? With age, what happens? Normally, transparent vitreous gel liquefies and it breaks up, leading to presence of little particles and fibrous strands floating in the vitreous cavity. So all these debris, they cast shadow on the retina. So they are seen in senile vitreous degeneration. They are seen like in pathological myopia. This is due to vitreous degeneration. Vitreous hemorrhage, if it is little, if it is massive, it will lead to sudden painless diminution of vision. But there's a slight bleed it will lead to floaters. Exudates in vitreous due to posterior uveitis. Then posterior vitreous detachment. Mostly this is a benign condition. The vitreous, it detaches from the retina, and in old age this may occur. So this is mostly a benign condition. Then flashes of light, which are called photopsia, we discussed, that occurs due to retina. So they are the light sensations of flickering lights. When they occur, you see the vitreous actually is shrinks in old age, as I mentioned, and liquefies. And what happens, there is a pull on the vitreoretinal attachment. When it is attached with the retina, there is a pull on that. That causes irritation to the retina. And this causes discharge of electrical impulses. So they are interpreted as flashes. So it's a benign condition, as I just mentioned. And it is seen when it is seen in posterior vitreous detachment. And it can be a prodromal symptom of retinal detachment. Always with such a patient, we should examine their posterior segment, retina, there. We call it ophthalmoscopic examination. So that's the thing, like vitreous traction, like some patients are having retinopathies and some they complicate, and then this may happen. Now the next entity is diplopia. Double vision we just discussed, things appear double. The diplopia is of two types. One is called binocular, second is uniocular. When both the eyes are open and we are seeing two, ask the patient to close one eye, then other eye. If it disappears, it is binocular. If it persists now, this is uniocular. So binocular diplopia will occur when both the eyes are working together. This will occur in squint, when this is a paralytic squint. Means this will occur when both the eyeballs are not in unison. One is position is shifted. Right, left, medial, lateral, up, down. So this will occur in squinting due to paralysis of nerve supplying to extraocular muscles, or in myasthenia gravis. Here patient will say double vision during the evening time. Exophthalmos, one eye is protruded more, so alignment is not proper. The image formed of the retina is not proper because one eye is not in alignment with the other. Then there is a fracture of floor of orbit after accident, road traffic accident. Or anisometropic glasses. Means anisometropic means suppose the refractive error in one eye, other eye, there is a gross difference in the power. That gross difference in power leads to image size is changed. Both the image size would be different because of the power. And that change in size of power, change in the size of image in one eye and other eye will lead to diplopia. Or after a squint correction in some patient, it may occur. Then uniocular, if it is confined to one eye, it occurs in early cataractous changes, if lens is shifted from its position, if pupils are more than two, like we perform a small surgical iridectomy in some surgeries, if it is large accidentally, it will happen. Then if the cornea is, curvature is too much, this is called keratoconus. Or there is a lens is implanted after cataract surgery, but it is decentered. And what happened as a result, there are two refractive zones are formed in the pupillary area that leads to uniocular diplopia. The symptom of distortion of image, vision, it's metamorphopsia, which we discussed, which is due to the retina. So macular part, it's central serous retinopathy, age-related macular degeneration, diabetic macular edema, macular hole. So the vision appears distorted in the center. Scotoma is a black spot in the visual field. This is left field, right field. So this may appear, or just a picture like a patient may say, doctor, since yesterday I don't see the lower part. Doctor, when I am talking to you, I don't see your face. This is all black in the center. So all these things occurs. This is called scotoma. When a patient perceives it, this is positive scotoma. And negative scotoma is when this is not perceived by the patient, but when we test objectively, we can find out. So this is one example is a blind spot in correspondence with the optic nerve head, optic disc. Just to know terminologies, absolute scotoma and relative. If it is totally dark, absolute. If some part of the vision is present in that dark zone, this is relative scotoma. So when we will find scotomas, if there is a retinal detachment, scarring in the retina, advanced stage of retinitis pigmentosa, there a patient in the last stage, it appears as if the patient is looking through a pipe, through a tube, only the central vision is left. Central serous retinopathy, patient see a black spot in front of the patient in the center. Advanced stage of glaucoma and visual pathway lesions when there are tumors or some growth along the visual pathways up till the brain. Then some patients may complain of colored halos. Colored halos, as we discussed. So this will occur only in 3 conditions: acute congestive glaucoma. Like when the patient is having narrow angle glaucoma, is proceeding towards acute congestive glaucoma, just before acute congestive glaucoma stage. Such patients say, doctor, in the evening time, night time, I went to see a movie in the theater, and then I had a pain, and then I started seeing the colored halos and the headlights. So that is the stage, and that stage may lead into acute congestive glaucoma. Early stages of cataract and mucopurulent conjunctivitis. The 3 stages. Some patients may complain of defective color vision. It's a rare symptom, and mostly the congenital one. Some of very normal human people, some of them, about 2% population is they have color vision defects, red or green. So it can be acquired. It is optic neuritis. And secondly, sometimes the patient after cataract surgery, and for some time they have a red-blue coloration of the vision. That is called dyschromatopsia. And sometimes the eyeballs are protruded out, and this is a protrusion of eyeball, proptosis. So this is the protrusion. So any tumor in the eyeball will all lead to protrusion of eyeball. So if there is some tumor in the orbit, or there is an exophthalmos which is protruding it, or if there is a tumor inside the eyeball. So all those things will lead to proptosis. Then eyeball, sometimes the patient may say, doctor, the eye appears if my eyes are wide one. The same thing, like, see, this is normally this should cover here, retraction of upper lid. So this same happens in such conditions. Patient may say, doctor, like my lids are drooped down. So this is a ptosis. When will it happen? This will happen like if there is a congenital one or the third nerve which supplies levator palpalis superilis, that is affected. So that may be neurogenic, or there's a tumor in the lid. So by the weight of that, it will go down. Then there may be swellings on the lid. There may be a tumor, dermoid, cyst, chalcyon. They are all swelling on the lids. The squinting, we just discussed squinting. Either it is paralytic or it is it's comitant. We call it comitant and non-comitant. So paralytic, or it is developmental. So that is the cause of squinting. Sometimes the lid margins in the lower part, it is outrolled. This is the lid margin. So this thing is outrolled, everted out. That leads to a lot of watering. The patient complains of watering. So that is an ectropion. So to conclude, we discussed all this. The thing is that if we know the structures of eye, which are what structures, what symptoms they are causing, and if we know that basic, and we have elaborated well into the history of presenting symptoms, then we are almost near the diagnosis. And if we have done all this thing elaborately, then you see that we would be spending less time in our examination. Because the examination would be focused, we would have shortlisted, okay, this part of the eye seems to be appeared, this part or this part. So now examination would be focused to that part. You are not going to examine the whole eye. And similarly, the good doctor is, good ophthalmologist, good doctor is who writes lesser investigation, less test. So that is all when you are able to make a diagnosis. So that's what the history and symptoms. Making the diagnosis with the symptoms is very important. So that was the purpose of taking this preliminary lecture for you all. And the references are taken from the textbook of ophthalmology by Mittal and Agarwal, which is published by Theme Publication and Themes Photo Bank and our departmental photo collection. And thank you very much for being with me. And if there are certain things, I think I switch over to now Mr. Amit and others for taking up because the time is short. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So I hope everybody have enjoyed the lecture which Dr. Sanjeev Mittal has just given us. Now we will have a short Q&A session where you can post your questions, and I'll ask my colleague Mr. Dinesh Kumar to share the link for the Q&A. The link is in the chat box, so you can click on that link and post your questions. We already have few questions, sir. We have started this Q&A, so I will share my screen and we can start taking the questions now, sir. Just let me know, sir, if you are able to see my screen where the questions are displayed.
Yes, we are able to see.
Yes, sir. So I would request Dr. Sanjeev Mittal and Dr. R.K. Agarwal to please take the questions. Sir, you can read the question and answer, sir. It will be nice because there are certain terminologies which you will not be able to pronounce it correctly.
Okay, so I request Dr. R.K. Agarwal to please, will you take up the questions? Will you read it or should I?
You should continue.
Okay. So this is the one question: how is ophthalmology as career? How to decide if ophthalmology is my branch? See, ophthalmology is one of the best branch in medical sciences, because you see in the last 30 years there have been a tremendous development in ophthalmology, and it is a very easy subject. I really tell you, like in your MBBS, this is the only subject where you can secure 75% or 80% marks, and very easy subject. And as a branch also, like for those actually who wants a little cool life, like little less number of emergencies, and who are for them actually it is a very good branch. I would suggest. I mean, all branches are good. All branches are good. I would say even the preclinical branches are very good. All branches are good. But like when you talk about clinical branches, so again, everyone has a different liking. And again, I would suggest to all students rather, actually internship is the right period to decide about which branch one should opt. Don't think while you're doing MBBS. When you come to internship, that is the right time, because then you are exposed to your work. Then you know what is my temperament. And very essential thing I would suggest for all students, those who would be opting for post-graduation, see, because of the examination system, what happens, you are in the merit, your rank is, depending on rank, you are not sure whether you are getting first choice or second choice or third choice. So remember, grossly divide into 3 parts. Whether you want whether you want a clinical branch or a surgical, clinical or non-clinical, number 1. If you want clinical, then you look for whether you want a medical branch or surgical branch. Medical and allied, like general medicine, pediatrics. Okay, these type of branches, or radio diagnosis, dermatology. Or you want a surgical branch. General surgery, orthopedics, ophthalmology, ENT, gynae. Because actually the temperament, one's temperament is different, because I have seen myself several people in so many years, the people who had opted to general surgery at that time, and their temperament was a medical, so they will never be successful as a surgeon. They will become just non-operating surgeons. So your temperament assessment is the right time is internship. Then you know actually what I like actually. So that is very important. And I would suggest even the non-clinical branches are not bad actually. You see, if if someone looks for, okay, no, I want to interact with the patient, because one feel like people would be knowing me, would be paying respect to me. I'm a doctor. The scenarios are actually changes with the life in the current trend with the development. All branches are good. It's basically which should actually appeal you. So assess yourself. Don't go only with your your merit only. When you put a choice during PG entrance exam, like first, second, third choice, so first you assess yourself whether you like medical or surgical. The second question is by Mr. Subodh Kumar. Please let me know why can't 7 colors with our open eyes? In which condition we can see the 7 colors of light with our eyes? Well, you see, actually, the 7 spectrum, they make only white color actually. And when there is a edema in the cornea, or there is early cataractus changes, so those leads to abnormal diffraction. Like during the rainy season, then the rains are over. Then in the atmosphere, because of some of the water vapors, the rays are getting diffracted. Then they divide into 7 colors. The same thing happens here. When there is a slight corneal edema or early cataractus changes, lenticular changes, then it will split into 7 colors. That is the reason. So otherwise, you will see white color. Then next question by Mr. Subodh is, what is
Sir,
stem
there is a
cell?
question. Excuse me,
Yes,
sir.
please.
There is a question. There is a question about that also, sir, which we have not answered, sir.
Okay. What essential medicines equipment should be ready for any ocular emergency? See, ocular emergencies. See, first thing that ocular emergency is different from life-saving emergencies. Life emergency. So in eyes, the patient doesn't die normally. Okay, it doesn't happen. So what are the real emergencies? Real ocular emergencies are if there is a trauma to eyes, chemical trauma or mechanical trauma. Number 1. Number 2 is central retinal artery occlusion is another ocular emergency. And the third, what is another emergency? This is considered acute congestive glaucoma. So basically, there are certain emergencies which has to be intervened immediately. Others, like one can intervene within an hour or 2 hours, no issue. So central retinal artery occlusion and trauma, they are real emergencies to be catered. And like the question, what equipment medicines should be ready? I would suggest here actually, like for the hospital, it's a different thing, but for your home, actually, if something happens, suppose accidentally some chemical is instilled in your eyes. So what thing is the best thing is immediately wash your eyes with plain water. Wash your eyes with plain water, number 1. Number 2, if some foreign body is instilled, some dust, never rub your eyes. Never rub your eyes. And third thing is very important. If one is not a doctor, one should not instill steroid eye drop. Steroid eye drop should never be instilled by a non-medical person, even I would say even by a medical student if it's not qualified doctor. Because several times steroid drops may aggravate your problems. So be very cautious about that. So otherwise, simply washing your eyes is best. And I think otherwise equipment is a long list. It will take half an hour if we discuss. Yes, next question, which one I should take up?
The top one, sir. What are the reasons and why a baby
born as a blind baby with optical nervous actually active or not? See, blind baby born is mostly congenital one. These are called congenital diseases. And those congenital is either the development during the embryology. If you read the chapter from the embryology, you will find if the development is not completed, if it is a premature baby, it may happen, or due to genetic defects, it may happen. So those are the causes, or there's a long list, but those are always congenital. Yes, next please. What is stem cell therapy, and does any teen got his eyes vision through stem cell therapy? See, when we talk about now vision restoration, so vision restoration, you see now you have to look for what is the cause of diminution of vision. Is it like some congenital anomaly affecting the anterior segment of the eye, or it is the posterior segment of the eye, or it is like the retina? So it is very difficult to say, and that's like which disease a patient is having. And then stem cell therapy is the basic thing you should remember here. When a child is born, baby is born, so the macula, the fovea centralis, the fovea starts developing from 6 weeks to 6 months within this time. And that is the initial stage is very important. If light is not reaching the eyes in this phase of initial 6 months, then what will happen? The functioning of retina, functioning of fovea will not develop. If that does not occur, the patient will develop amblyopia. Okay, and that patient actually will develop other nystagmus, involuntary jerky movements. If nystagmus occurs, this is not going to be improved by any treatment throughout the world. Stent therapy has a role in certain diseases like some retinal degenerative diseases. It has some role, but it is actually more of actually on experimental. Basically, it has been being done for the last 30 years, but there has not been much success into that. Only that you see the stem cell like in corneal diseases. In the cornea, I mentioned limbus. Limbus has some stem cells. So some degenerative diseases of the cornea, here the stem cell has a role. Those are used nowadays. So for the last 10 or 15 years, stem cells are used only now for the corneas, but for the retinal diseases, it has not come up very successfully. And I just mention because some of the I heard of actually some place some work is being done on optic atrophy with that stem cell. So this is also something like that that's not been proved yet any positive till now. So this is about your this question. So next question is closed and open angle glaucoma and the differences between them. See, when we talk about glaucoma in general, we talk about primary glaucomas which are occurring. So glaucoma is basically what happens if you see that we discuss about anterior chamber. Anterior chamber. So in the anterior chamber, the cornea is anteriorly and posteriorly the iris. And where they meet at the periphery, that area is called angle of anterior chamber. So that angle of anterior chamber, actually what happens, aqueous humor which is filtered from the ciliary body comes to posterior chamber, then goes through the pupil to the anterior chamber, and then goes to the trabecular meshwork in the angle of anterior chamber, and through that trabecular meshwork goes into the aqueous humor, aqueous vein, venous circulation. So blood was filtered and then was getting drained through the angle of anterior chamber to back to the vein. This is what happening for metabolism of corneal lens. So this open angle and closed angle is basically the structures there. So there is a gradation which decides. So I think this topic would be very long. It needs another one lecture for this in detail. So I just briefed you little what is the difference. What is astigmatism plus myopia? Astigmatism is, these are the refractive errors. These are the refractive errors. Refractive errors are myopias, hypermetropias, and astigmatism. And one thing more important, remember, refractive errors are, these are errors, not a disease. This is not eye disease, these are errors. Only myopia is also error. But if it is a pathological one, then it is a disease. Presbyopia is something, not an error, rather it's a sort of accommodation problem. It's a physiological one which occurs with the age. So that is the thing. This is the refraction. Next, please. Is it possible to create lenses or any other optical preparation which can be absorbed in our eyes? Create lenses or any other optical preparation which can be absorbed. Absorbed in our eyes, I didn't get actually exactly. To create lenses, we have artificial lenses actually. Artificial, because when the lens becomes cataractous, we replace it with artificial lens inside. But what you said actually here is other optical preparation which can be absorbed in our eyes. Till now, actually nothing like that has taken place. Only the artificial lenses are. Diplopia comes to a person as they age. No, diplopia does not come to a person when they age. Diplopia, I think this is diplopia, not diploma.
Right.
Diplopia. I read it diplopia actually initially. So diplopia, actually this is not related with the age. It is due to some entities which we discussed in those slides. And there is another question that clearly understand the difference between uniocular and binocular diplopia. Okay. See, we have two eyes, but we see only one. Because we see with this eye, we see one, we see one. Now with two eyes, we see one. We are not seeing two. So image formed with this eye and with this eye, both are fusing together and making a single image at the level of the brain, right? So if the image initially is formed over the retina, which part of the retina? That is the fovea centralis. So fovea centralis, these are called corresponding areas of the retina where it is formed. Suppose just assume this is my right eye, this is left eye. I think I can demonstrate like this. If one eye is deviated, so suppose any object which is making an image over here, this object will not make an image of the fovea. Image would be formed other place of the retina because this eye is deviated. Now what will happen? Until the image is formed on the fovea, it will not fuse together. So here image will not fuse together. As a result, patient will see two. So diplopia is due to malalignment of both the eyes. Okay, so this is a binocular diplopia. Now this can occur either due to paralysis of nerves supplying to extraocular muscles or due to some mechanical causes like the eyeball has shifted its position, some tumor has pushed posteriorly. So that is the cause, or fracture of the orbit, it is sunken. So position is changed because of that. So mechanical cause or neurological cause may be the factor leading to binocular diplopia. Uniocular is like a patient is seeing two. You close one eye and the patient says, no doctor, yes, doctor still I see two. Now this is diplopia is confined to this eye. I see two again. So this is now I see one. With this eye there is a diplopia. Okay, I close one eye. With this eye there is a diplopia. Now this is confined to one eye. So this is a uniocular diplopia. And the causes are localized to eyeball, which we read out in detail, which in the presentation. So when the causes are involving both the eyes together, this is binocular. When it is confined to one of the eye, inside one eye, this is uniocular. I think it's clear. Is the lens replacement operation safe for future? I mean, they do not result any side effect in future. See, just to tell you one thing, lens replacement is entirely a safe procedure. No long-term complication of it. But you should know that every surgery may have some little complication. I mean, anything may happen. So there is one dictum of any disease throughout medical sciences. First is the disease should not occur. Prevention of disease, number one. Number two, treat the disease conservatively with medical treatment. If it is not cured with medicine, now treat with surgery, if possible. So, I mean, when you talk about operation is the last resort. Okay, so if you feel initially there's a cataractous changes occurred, take the help of change of glasses. Get your refraction done. So that refraction done would help you. Okay, when you feel no, with the change of glasses not helping, it's getting difficulty in my day-to-day work, now time get an operation. That is safe. That is safe. Yes, next please. What should we refer to increase our clinical knowledge of ophthalmology? See, actually, when you talk about clinical knowledge, not only in ophthalmology, whole of medical science, when you talk about your knowledge, clinical knowledge, this is presentation of cases. Attend clinics. Theory alone will not help. Attend clinics and try to present cases. When you get the chance of presenting the cases in the wards, in your OPDs, during MBBS, everyone gets the chance. That is very important. One should not escape from that. Several times there is a fear. Students, they want to skip. But you see, remember, once you present a case, that you will remember throughout the life. And secondly, attend the clinics as far as possible. Because attending clinics is different from lectures. With the attending clinics, our thought process, like what I discussed in the lecture, this is not as simple for you as it is for me. Because for you it is just a theory. But we try to make a foundation. But unless you attend the clinics and apply it there, then your thought process is not going to develop. To increase clinical knowledge, no books will help, only attend the clinics. Unfortunately, because of pandemic, there is a limitation with every student. Nowadays, we understand. And hence, therefore, I think across all medical colleges, clinical postings are also being taught, given through some procedures, videographs of procedures which are shown actually. So there's a limitation, and You see, this is a once in lifetime limitation. This has happened, but don't get discouraged with this. You will have ample time throughout your life in your career to improve this after this pandemic. So something is left. The internship is the period, and subsequently there's a period you can do it. Doctors, they learn throughout life, so don't get disheartened now.
Sir, we are running short of time, sir. It's already 6. We have feedback. So we will take the questions later offline. We will do it next week and we will record it and share it with the audience. It is possible, sir. With your permission,
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
yeah, because it's already 6, so that's why.
Okay, right.
We are really sorry and we
No,
don't
it's
have
okay.
enough time. So now, sir, once again, I would like to thank you for taking the questions patiently, and I would also like to thank Dr. R.K. Agarwal, sir, also. Sir, before we this presentation, sir, I would want you to tell us something about the book which you have recently published, sir, Textbook of Ophthalmology. So if you can give us some information about what is there in that book.
I think Dr. Agarwal, I'm feeling now exhausted after. I think Dr. Agarwal, please you take over some.
Just a few words, sir, just a couple of minutes.
अरे कंटिन्यू करो यार, क्वेश्चन आंसर भी तो सब तुम्हारे तैयार है ये टॉपिक. मैंने तो पढ़ा ही नहीं.
For this book, actually, I would say this book has been tried with both of us, Dr. Agarwal and me, and we for the last 10 years, in fact, in year 2011, we had thought of we are good friends, old friends, and he has been motivating me like too much. I was discussing we should come up with a book. Then he said, don't worry, we'll do it together. So because of we were two together, that's what we could come out with this. Had we been a single person, it was very difficult to come up with this book. And we really have tried what we actually felt like several books are there in the market for MBBS level. They are good books also, I don't say that. But I felt still there is some scope that majority of the people, students, when they read really what we actually, when we are taking the classes, when we want them to know that. So let us just make it our own style. So that was actually basically mine and Dr. Rajkumar Agarwal's style, because we had been together since long and been discussing. So this is all style, that style we put up to the students. We try to put up that. We try to make like, this should be very simplified. And the language should be simple and sort of many things like what will happen next and how this is occurring. So everything has some reason behind that. So that it interests the students actually about the topic, about the subject. So that was the purpose. And simply we came up with this. And the theme actually publication is really, this is your really role for supporting us for that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
देखिए, हाँ, एक चीज और मैं बता दूं आपको. एक तो इसमें फ्लो चार्ट जो है वो बेसिकली रिपीटिशन है उसका टेक्स्ट का. हेलो.
Yes, sir, we are hearing you.
हाँ, फ्लो चार्ट जो है वो रिपीटिशन है उसका टेक्स्ट का. और दूसरे इसमें हमने जो ब्लू बॉक्सेस दिए हैं, ब्लू बॉक्स में वो अप्लाइड पार्ट है. ब्लू बॉक्स का तो एक एक हेडिंग जो है वो लिटरली एमसीक्यू क्रिएट कर सकता है.
Yes. तो
ब्लू बॉक्स जरूर पढ़ें. बिल्कुल इको और फ्रेंडली जो है, ये स्टूडेंट फ्रेंडली बुक है. लिटरली मैं बता रहा हूँ कि ये जो किताब है वो स्टूडेंट्स के लिए बूंद साबित होगी.
Of course, sir. The last 6 months feedback has been, really great from the professors, and today we are getting a chance to, showcase this book to the students who are part of this webinar. And my colleague Tinish has just shared a link where the participant can download 2 chapters from the book freely. The PDF link has been given to them. So one chapter from glaucoma and cornea has been combined in that file, and they can download it. And one more thing I would like to add, apart from being one of the most latest book and student-friendly book and clinically oriented book. This is the first book which is as per the latest CBME curriculum, sir, which is the most important part and which is really appreciated by one and all. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Dr. Agarwal and Dr. Mittal, sir. Thank you so much, sir. So now I will do the closing remarks, and before the closing remarks, I will just acknowledge, give some acknowledgement. So we would like to acknowledge our event partners, Quizzers Page and Medusin, who have supported this event on social media. And Quizzers Page, you can contact or follow the Quizzers Page on Instagram. The handle is given below. So Medusin and Quizzers Page are our event partners for this web seminar, and we would like to extend our thanks to them. We would also like to inform you that we are running a medical quiz on our Instagram channel, and this is a daily quiz where we'll be posting one question from basic science subjects, and we are giving weekly prizes to all the winners. So not all the winners, to the top 3 participants with right answers, the first one. So weekly prize of up to rupees 2,000, and there is also a monthly prize of 5,000 rupees. And this is this prizes will be given in the form of Amazon gift vouchers. So I would want all of you to follow us on Thema_India on Instagram and participate in the quiz contest. And we are currently running a 40% discount sale on our website, and you can buy textbook of ophthalmology and all other student textbooks by visiting this page thema.in/student-textbooks, and you can avail 40% discount on all the purchases and also get free shipping across India. With this, I would like to close today's web seminar, and thank you, Dr. Mittal, once again, and I wish you have a pleasant evening. And I also want to thank all the participants who have taken out time to attend this webinar, even during the toughest times where everybody is very busy with their personal and health issues. And so I hope and we hope from Thema that this seminar was very useful, and we would look forward for your feedback, and we will meet you again soon with another seminar. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Dr. Sir, for being part of it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rameshwar. Thank you, Tignish.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.